They do it Saturday mornings early. Like
Okay.
they did it Saturday morning. They started at 9 o'clock my time, so 11 o'clock Eastern,
Got it.
I believe. Yeah, welcome everybody. Here we are after hours. Carlos from Because I'm Carlos, the Carlos from the hit show Because I'm Carlos.
Yeah, exactly. Sure.
Joins me for some after hours.
For dozens of people, they are dozens and dozens.
Dozens of people watching the Because I'm Carlos show. So yeah, we were just chatting about Hobby Hotline, which is another YouTube live streaming show that I called into this morning because that's what they do. It's a live call-in show, and so I was watching the show, and at one point, so there. Hobby Hotline, I just want to talk about it for a second here, Carlos. Hobby Hotline is a group of guys that I think that they basically all had their own podcasts at one time, and they still do. Mm-hmm. And now they've just sort of decided, hey, we're going to work together. We're going to build a show, and it's going to be a call-in show. And they tout it as the Hobby's only live call-in show, and it's pretty cool. Drew runs the show. It seems like he kind of quarterbacks it, and so what I did is I called in. And just like you and Bobby did on this show back on Wednesday when you guys came to the rescue. Hello, Bobby. I see you there. Good evening to you again. And so I called in because Rich Klein is one of the regular hosts on the show, and he was my guest here a couple weeks ago. And he encouraged me, yeah, you should call in sometime. So I did. I called in this morning, but I didn't call in until I heard somebody mention hockey because they were talking about football and soccer most of the time. I thought, I'm not going to call in to say, hey guys, I'm Jeremy. But when I heard hockey come up, I'm like, all right, that's it. So I hit, join studio or join whatever. I punched in the URL and I went in and Drew brought me on screen right away. So I was like looking down on my phone. So my bald head is in the camera, and all of a sudden I look up and there I am on the screen. And but it was a lot of fun. These guys are really nice guys. And Eric Norton from Beckett Live Presents was co-hosting this morning. So again, they do it Saturday mornings at like 11 a.m. Eastern. And so it's pretty early. And but I had a great time on there. I was only on there for about, 7-8 minutes, I'd say. But the conversation was great. The guys are all awesome. There's Mike Summer, there was Eric Norton, there was Drew Herndon, and then John Newman is another regular host of the show, but he wasn't on at the time. But then he messaged me after we spoke throughout the day, worked out a few things for some future shows and that. And great show. I've enjoyed it since I've heard of it, and had fun on there today. Have you had a chance, Carlos, to catch Hobby Hotline?
I probably caught a couple of minutes of it here and there. It's one of those things where the format is interesting, but I guess like most call-in shows, I take it with a grain of salt because it's like, oh, the colors.
Yeah, but you know what? I will say, watching the episodes, the callers have been good that I've seen, and a lot of them are regular. So,
well, that would be the hope then. Then hopefully they've kind of called outs, because with a call-in show, you're always inviting someone. It's one thing if you've got somebody in a chat and you can choose who to display and who not to display. It's another thing when you got a call, you just got a name. Okay, what do you want to talk about? That's why live call-in shows are usually always a little. That's why they have the button. They're like ready to be like, I'm going to expel you as soon as you say something out of line. You're gone.
Right. And you know how StreamYard works here. I can boot you quite easily if I want. Not only can I boot you, I have the option to kick you out, or the option to ban you, so you can never get back in. But I wouldn't do either of those to you, Carlos. I want to say hello to Dave Jones. Welcome to After Hours Legion. Welcome back, Eric. Welcome back. He welcomes back Carlos. Bobby Burrell. Nice to see you again. Matt, round 2, ding, ding, ding. Yes, trolls on call-in shows. I listen to the Flames games on the radio here, and then there's the call-in show afterwards, and it's the same guys that call in all the time, but the host is actually really good at speeding up any lulls and really getting to some interesting stuff. But he does let some guys kind of ramble on, and sometimes you could tell that these guys have been, having a few wobbly pops along the way in the evening, and it can be pretty entertaining.
It makes for good radio if you control it well. What you're talking about is what in my old life I used to work in a call center doing calls, and that's call control. That's like, look, I'll let you talk, but there will come a time where I'm either going to speed you up or I'm going to get you out of here if you're going out of line.
Yeah, for sure. Brian, welcome back, man. Welcome back. Dave Hart, finally home from work and finally listen. Hey, everyone. Yeah, Dave, welcome back. You missed the first show. It was we went for 2 hours with Chris Carlin, Name Cardinal joined us for probably half an hour in there at about the hour 15 mark. Carlos, you listened to the episode.
Yep.
Oh, and here Brian says, Jeremy, great job producing the show tonight. Well done. Brian, I want to say Brian, thanks for noticing, because what I was doing was we had a slideshow going and I was running the slides, and instead of keeping the slide on while Chris was speaking to it the whole time, and we were just sort of the small boxes along the side of the screen, I kind of went back to the wide angle like we have right now, and then I went back and bringing the comments on. So I appreciate that comment, because I kind of got into a bit of a rhythm there. It was fun to produce that with a presentation going on, really. But
that's why I like the StreamYard platform for what it is. It actually gives you a surprising amount of adaptability. You can kind of play around with things on the fly. It lets you really mess with it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a great platform. I love it. You know what? I got to say, if it wasn't for StreamYard, I don't think this show would have evolved into what it's become. StreamYard has really facilitated this. So anyone out there who's looking to do live streaming and any type of content, hobby or otherwise, StreamYard it's pretty awesome for it, I think. But so the show we just had 2 hours. It was an emotional show at times. It was inspirational and it was emotional. I think it's the best word I can use. Like I said to Chris after, there were a couple times I literally was like choking back tears. Especially it was the one where he showed the heroic inspiration cards of the father who passed away and had had two or three
and they did the
kids.
Photoshop to include both of the kids. Yeah.
Man, that tugged at my heartstrings. And then at the end, talking about Chris's brother John, who has ALS, and you could see Chris getting choked up. Like this wasn't just let's talk about hockey products or state of the hobby. This was more of I don't know. I felt it was an important episode. We got to name who came on as the surprise guest. Did a great job, and he's been on before. So if you may have seen him before on the show, but we got to speak to the Indigenous Rookie Cards project he's doing, and now how Chris Carlin at Upper Deck saw him on Sports Cards Live and decided, hey, we got to do something with this guy, and we got to bring to light some of these players who played but never had cards. Like, in a weird way, I feel intimately involved with this in it, that they made that connection via this show. Like, it's a privilege. It's purely a privilege for me to even be loosely involved. I'm not involved now, but to facilitate that happening is, I don't know, it's pretty cool. I think it's just pretty cool, and that episode overall was one that I'm very, very pleased with.
I think that I think to your point, and I was about to make a pithy joke, but I'm like, all right, more serious content. Hold on, we'll be serious for a second. But it is good that it's nice that then Carlin can come on and be able to draw the link, because he was able to see a name on your show, which then in turn facilitated and assisted in developing a set that allows some representation for some folks that were missed out on some representation. See, I can be serious sometimes.
Yeah,
I was going to make some jokes, but I'm gonna be nice, and we'll take it easy on this one, at least for the first part.
It's and there were serious topics in that episode, and So I appreciate that, Carlos. I mean, I said to Carlos, everybody watch. I said to Carlos before we came on, I said, you've got more energy than I do right now, tonight.
I'm also bogged down from allergies, and I barely slept. And but that's why I always say, I'm just warming up. It's like, dude, this is me run down. This is the rundown version.
Right on. Well, I'm glad you're here to kind of bring up, elevate my energy, if you will. Brian says, hey to Legion. Eric says, Wobbly Pop's going to start using. I am surprised you haven't heard that. That's common where I come from. Brian, thank you for that. Legion says, Boy Names Project looks spectacular. Yeah, and check out his website. I put it up. I'll put it up again if anyone wants to see it, because I still have it here. But that's the website. It's just I think it's just an important project for society, really, more than anything else. Brian, you did notice. Thanks, man. Because that was a bit of a rhythmic juggling act, I'll say. Name, there he is. Thank you for your unbelievable kindness. However, I can't say it's just mine. Joe says powerful content. Well done. Thank you, Joe. Legion, don't sell yourself short. You're an amazing resource. Thank you, Legion. I appreciate that. Brian, Jeremy's going to start making everyone cry like the Master Roy Firestone you had 2 tonight. I almost started crying twice tonight myself. It was pretty cool. Yeah, it was cool. Very cool. I don't think. What's that? I don't think Carlos will cry. I don't think so either.
Well, Brian, don't underestimate how moved I was by the use of PowerPoint decks, because I was thinking nostalgically to PowerPoint decks that I remember historically, sales figures and charts, and I was getting choked up and emotional. And then I was like, oh wait, there's stuff on the slide. Never mind. Sorry.
Hilarious. Chris, hello to you. Hello to you. And who's this? Who is this? This isn't Paul Cashman, is it?
It says Facebook user. It's Facebook.
I know, but
it's Mr. User.
Who's this? Can you let us know? Is this the Medano collector? Did he end up getting the shield?
No.
This is the Medano collector. He did not end up getting the shield. That shield went for more than I thought it was going to go for.
So I'll quickly answer it. So the shield itself, Jeremy and I kind of talked offline, and we were trying to figure out, like, concept wise what we thought it would go for. And I looked at some previous comps for shields and cards like that. Go ahead.
Hold on. We're talking about a Mike Medano shield from which product was it?
This was Ultimate, I believe.
Ultimate. Okay, sorry. Continue.
Yeah. Oh no, actually no. Hold on. It was the Panini product. It was one of the Panini ones.
Dominion.
Yeah, Dominion. That's the one. Exactly.
Right.
They're premium. They're premium product, but it was still a shield, patch, and an autograph as well. So beautiful card, and a one of one, of course. But I was looking at previous comps for it, and I was trying to figure out. Okay, I think where it fell. I was comfortable. Well, I should say uncomfortable. I bid up to $870 US. So I bid what was a pretty strong offer. I haven't gone anywhere close to that kind of price figure because for the most part, I've never had to. And I still lost out by about $40. It went for 910 US. And by the way, that would have also included the reason why I would have bid more, but also I have to factor in the shipping and that, and the eBay international shipping thing, whatever. It would have added like another $150. So I'm actually when I say 870, I'm talking about comfortably over 1,000. That's actually what my bid would have been.
Yeah.
And translated to Canadian, that's about $1,300 Canadian. Not an insignificant sum, and I still lost.
And you still lost. I remember sending you my guess at what it would sell for. I said to you, I see you getting that card for $400 to $500. Well, I was like 40% of the price, really, because I was thinking Canadian, so it went for more than that for sure.
It went for a pretty penny.
So I mean, we can all identify with that, Carlos. You because you were watching that card for a full week. I mean, you knew it was coming. You probably, I think we discussed, you were gonna not buy some other cards in order to allocate those funds towards this one. So for all of us watching who collect cards, and we've all been through that, what was it like when you didn't win the card? What did it feel like as a collector?
Well, I don't want to disappoint Brian, but in the vein of what we talked about, I looked at it, I looked at the final price, and I felt an emotional response like, huh. Oh, well. Anyway, click. I did like 4 buy nows.
So Carlos is like the most emotionless guy I think that I've ever met. Right?
No, the thing is, I knew what I was willing to do, and like, jokes aside, I knew what I was willing to do, and if somebody was willing to pay more, hey man, good. I hope you enjoy the card, because I bought 4 or 5 cards, including some awesome cards that I've gotten in the collection I've enjoyed. One of those Pujols rookies that I bought was immediately after, as soon as I lost the card, I was like, all right, Pujols rookie it is.
Buy it now.
I had other cards that I was like, I can't buy these right now because I am holding these funds to try to win this thing. When I didn't win it, I was like, well, chains are off. We're going.
Yeah. Go shopping.
It was a very short-lived emotional response. I think I shed like half a tear and then it went right back in.
Yeah. No. I hear you, man. It's the same thing for me. I used to get more upset by losing out on cards in the last minute, and it's at my own fault because I'm a sniper. So my bid goes in with 2 seconds left, and if I don't get the card, it's too late to up my bid. Usually, sometimes you know how on the app it preloads a few more options. Sometimes you can get one in, and you don't even know what it is because there could have been 3 other bids. So you could have bid $100 as your max bid, but all of a sudden, after you bid, there were 3 more bids, and then the preloaded one could be $500 or $1,000. And if you hit it without looking, that happened to me one time several years ago. I paid way more for a card than I wanted, and that was a bad buy. But
I think it would have also been a very different game under 2 circumstances. If I didn't already have 1,500 other Medano cards, I had already been working on the collection for a long time. And the second one is if I didn't have dozens of one-of-ones. Like if this was my first one of one, and this is the one that I had my heart set on, it is a centerpiece type card. A shield card is an awesome card. But if I literally had never had one or won a great card before or whatever, and this is the one I was going for and I lost, the disappointment would have been like huge. As it was, I was annoyed, but I was like, you were willing to pay more than me. I can't stop it.
No, like I was saying, I used to get more upset by it, but now I've just really become comfortable with the philosophy that there's always more cards to buy out
Yeah.
there. No matter what it is, you'll always find something else to take its spot, to put your money into. And I think there's so many cards out there, so many collectors now. As collectors, we just need to be able to let some go sometimes. Now, if it's a real important piece, like, I'm building the name Howard Chuck from the cup.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
they're all one of one. So and I'm only missing one letter still. If that letter comes up and I miss it and it's gone, I'm now all of a sudden I'm contacting the seller. I'm begging him to put me in touch with his buyer. And then I'm going to offer an obscene amount of money just to get that one card that I know I'll never get my money out of because I'm the highest buyer, the highest payer of it for certain. And that speaks to not just being outbid, but even just missing a card or forgetting to bid, or you go to bid and your phone rings and you can't bid, or whatever it is. Lots of ways that can happen. A few more comments, Carlos, have trickled in.
Yep.
Rod says, "What a great subset this could be." I think Rod's speaking about the indigenous card set that we were talking about.
I think the design of the proposed design I thought was a pretty good design.
I thought it was too.
It looked pretty nice. I got some of the significance. I caught the game was closing in on its conclusion, I think, when they were explaining the logo. But I thought the logo actually looked really cool, and I thought it was great that there was meaning behind it. It wasn't an accident. I thought that was very good.
Of course, yeah. What's the Stars are up 3? Yeah, I knew Dallas was going to beat Vegas. They're up 3-1 now in the series, so one more game.
Yeah, but they were comfortably outshot, and I was kind of like tensely watching on the other screen. I was like,
I just noticed that, man. Like, Khudobin has been just a star throughout.
Well, as you know, Jeremy, you oftentimes want to rely on your playoff life on a 34-year-old journeyman goaltender. That fills you with comfort. It fills you, especially when your team is getting horrifically outshot.
Well, hey, man, he is stepping up for sure. Brett Miles back for the after hours evening hearing name tonight. Exciting. Yeah, that was good stuff coming there. Good stuff coming. Legion says, has anyone else seen the leaked 2021 exquisite sheets on Alpha Investments video, the ones with Alexis on them? I haven't heard anyone talking about them. It's driving me nuts that no one's mentioned. Legion, that is news to me. I'm surprised that they would even have, I can't believe that it's real, because would they already be thinking about exquisite cards when they're still thinking about the Series 1, let's call it Young Gun card? That could be some sort of fake news, but maybe not.
It's hard to say. It's hard to say right now.
I've heard nothing of it, Legion. Brett Miles, bidding your max and losing out. Clear conscience. Love it. Yeah, that's it.
I saw that comment and I thought it was really good. You're 100% right. At this stage, if you've been collecting long enough, you try, you do your best, and if you miss out, you know what? I got 5,000 other cards that I'm missing. And I got work to do.
And there's 5,000 more coming.
Yeah.
Brian says, so good to know that Carlos is not an android and can squeeze a tear if he has to.
Oh, those PowerPoint decks, man. Those PowerPoint decks.
Brian, I'll believe it when I see that tier. Then I'll believe it. Until now, I'm thinking android.
Wait until we see those sales figures, Jeremy. Wait until we see those pie charts.
Yeah.
It's very emotional. Very emotional.
Very emotional. You're hilarious, Carlos. What does Chris say? Jeremy, what would you do if Hockey Card Heaven over on ComC gets that last Howard Chuck letter? I'd pay him. What could I do? I'd pay him. I'd pay him. Footy Cards from Melbourne, Australia. Good afternoon to you too, sir. Nice to have you. Very nice. That's one of the cool things about this whole thing. This whole YouTube world is that it's truly international. So glad. But
also we have discussed on the off after hours footy cards. It has come up.
It has come up. So for those of you who wonder what Carlos might be referring to, so was it last Saturday, Carlos? It must have been.
I think so. Yeah.
It was last Saturday. We had I had the episode. Who was the guest last Saturday? It was
it after Brian's?
It was after. Well, Brian was the after hours. Last Saturday, I have it written down here somewhere. Last Saturday was. It was Bobby Burrell.
Oh, right, Bobby. You're right.
It was Bobby Burrell. And then after Bobby, Brian Palmer came on for after hours. And then me and you, I don't know, were we in the studio or maybe we were just in Facebook video chat or something?
It was, I was like Facebook video.
But Carlos and I then had just a private video chat for like 2 more hours. It was like
But you guys missed out, because if I had recorded, it was a symposium on hobby content ethics. Like, some of the best content is not being recorded.
Well, don't tease them because it's lost forever now. That was good. But so we were joking that was the after hours episode, and what a long day for me of talking hobby on video, but that was fun. Peter says, after Vegas beat out the Jets in the conference final, I will hold a grudge forever. Go Dallas.
Love it.
Yeah, and you know what? Dallas beat my Flames, but they deserve to, and I think Dallas is looking super good. And I think between them and Tampa Bay, it's probably going to be a toss-up.
I need a Stanley Cup final in the HD era, Jeremy. When the team won last, it was 1999. HD was not invented. It wasn't there. It wasn't ready. I need to see high definition Stanley Cup final with my team in it, just to see them in it.
I think you're going to see it, man. And I'm calling Tampa to beat the Islanders over there. And, you know, sorry to the mayor of Canada, but
I was going to say, somewhere off in the distance, you're about to get disowned from Canada.
I know. Rich Barone is not going to like it, but hey, I'm just calling what I think. And but that said, I'm actually hoping for the Islanders because of my buddy Rich Barone, also known as the mayor of Canada. What does Chris say? Amounts of shots don't matter in PDB's system. Golden Knights fans are finding out why the Sharks fans screamed for Peter DeBoer's head for a few years after he got fired. Yeah. Eric, seems like having Josh Tomlin start a World Series game.
And I get a whole series of it. It's great.
You
Every single game.
You're getting all playoffs of it. Peter Chow, the best thing about bidding your max is when you win it with 20% of your top number, they will never know. Okay, I want to say something about that, because that happens to me all the time, because if there's a card I really want, I'll put in a bid that it's like, I'll be okay if I pay it, but I'd rather not. And it happened to me not too long ago, to the scale of like, I basically put in a bid of $600 when the card was at $250, and I think I won it for $400. And I felt like, hey, I'm up $200. I'm already ahead $200 on this card. I don't know if that's a smart way to look at it or a logical way, but it's certainly an emotional way, and it feels right to me. So I'm going to stick with it.
There you go.
Legion, it's real. They were uncut sheets used as spacers in Magic the Gathering pelleted products, probably from the printer. And so now we're mixing exquisite Lafreniere cards with Magic the Gathering. I'm confused. Joe says, Carlos is awesome. I wondered how long he prepared for the card ladder episode with Chris. Felt like a cranky professor grilling a PhD candidate in a dissertation defense. Now, before you jump in, Carlos, I watched that too, Joe, and I loved that episode. I thought it was great. And then if you notice, Carlos had another one with Josh from Cardboard Chronicles and Card Ladder. And it was almost, I've never seen, and I've seen a lot of Josh's content. I've never seen him in that sort of persona, if you will, where he was, it almost seemed to me like Josh felt like he was having a conversation with someone of his equal intelligence. And I don't say that in any negative way. I think Josh is a highly intelligent man, very smart, probably smarter than he can even speak to us.
Yeah, he's a smart guy. He has to be the developer on an app that's popular right now. You have to be, you have to have some brains going.
But smart, and just not in like the coding world. He sees the games that he's a fan of. He sees the hobby. He's got unique perspectives, and he's influential in the hobby. But so it was neat to see him in that sort of an exchange with you, Carlos. Because again, it seemed like he almost was like a different person, in that he was super comfortable talking to you, because I think he felt like, hey, this guy knows what I'm saying. No matter what I'm saying, he's going to understand it. So that's a shout out to you, Carlos, for your level of intelligence as well, which I think is high. Also, I mean, you're well spoken, and
I appreciate that. But let me give Joe a little insight on that one, because since he asked the question, I want to help him. So one thing, Joe, is that I tried. So what Jeremy's referring to, both of those episodes, I tried very hard to make sure those episodes didn't feel like any other interviews or anything they'd done, because they've done a lot of interviews on podcasts and YouTube channels, and Josh has his own YouTube channel where he does his own interviews and whatever. To answer your question, I did prepare, yes. Not as much as you'd think. I'm one of those people that people hate, that doesn't have to study very much for the final exam. It just shows up and does what it needs to do. I also ignored my teachers, much to their frustration.
Because you were smarter than them?
Well, yeah. And I'll give you a story in a little later. But I have a good story about exactly how that played out. But no, I did still read it. My time was focused on looking at the Card Ladder app itself. what I did is I tried to break it down the same way I would break down any other piece of software that I have to do. Because for my current job, I trained myself on how to use that tool with no documentation and nobody else to do anything. And I'm the system administrator for it. I do the configurations on it. I taught myself how to do it in 2 weeks, and then I started telling the app developers how their stuff works. But that's what I do. So I have to, so I treated it the same way. But in that case, I was able to see it from the inside. From Card Ladder, I don't have access to the inside, so I had to take a really deep dive. So when I went over it with Chris, I went over it with a fine tooth comb, because I'm like, look, man, I've broken this thing down because nobody has ever asked you this question, and nobody else will, because no one is gonna waste their time. It takes too much. You either have to know what you're doing, or it takes a ton of time. And then to bring you on and then kind of get you to answer the questions I want you to get answers from, that was what made the Chris thing work. And then with the Josh thing, I took a different approach. I just didn't prepare him. I said, look, man, I'm going to talk to you about the hobby. You don't know where I'm going. And that's half the fun. So that's kind of where Jeremy and I will take two different approaches. By the way, both work. They're complementary in the way they do it, because prepping your guest is good, because then you'll get them to think about the answer a little bit. I like to kind of, let me challenge you. I felt like he was smart enough. Like, if I put you off the cuff a little bit, you're going to say something a little bit interesting, and then I can riff off of that. I might have had 3 bullet points that I ran for the whole 80 minutes. And that 3 bullet points took us 80 minutes, and we could have kept going.
Yeah. Yeah. It was excellent, Carlos. I mean, I've seen other people interview both of those guys, both Chris and Josh, about Card Ladder, but nobody got the information out of them that you did. It was great.
And he has a personality. Like, if you allow him to get in his element and let him go a little bit, because Amit actually said the exact same thing to me. He was like, I didn't realize he had that kind of personality. It's like, it's there, but you have to put him in a position like, look, dude, I'm going to have a follow-up question. So give me so let's go. Let's see what you got.
Yeah.
It was a challenge. And I think he enjoyed the challenge, and I enjoyed the challenge of challenging him.
And I think he recognized that you could, you were coming from a perspective and a knowledge level where you could challenge him. So that was great stuff. Yamwax writes, Jeremy, I enjoyed catching your appearance on Hobby Hotline this morning. Thank you, Yam. Yeah, that was fun. I gotta say, I left that 7, 8, 10 minutes, however long I was on there. I left it very, very happy that I clicked the button and went on, because I wasn't sure that I was going to. And again, it was they're a good group of guys. They were very welcoming to me, and as cheesy as it sounds, I'm going to make friends with these guys, and that's always a good thing, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yam says Josh sees around corners, which is interesting, because I think what you're saying is, being sort of ahead of the curve, ahead of the trend in certain things, and he started talking about certain fantasy football long before. I don't know how long before other hobbyists were, but now it's caught on. But he's talked about it, and he's put it on Instagram, so people are seeing it, and people trust him, and they see he's been successful in cards, so they're following his lead. But I want to seeing around corners is one of the fun things that we can do in the hobby, is try and pick a trend out that may not be happening quite yet. And all of the, obviously I'm a hockey guy first, and many of the viewers are too. I think that's a trend itself that could catch on more than it already has with the collectors, the hobbyists that focus more specifically on other sports, or more, put more of their time and money into, say, basketball, baseball, or football. I can see some of them coming over to hockey because of just the way the hobby's trending in general right now. People are looking for things to get ahead of, and hockey is one of them, just like soccer was one of them until not too recently.
That's the exact example I would use, because and Josh and I had that part of that conversation was just that, because it's not that soccer's not popular. It is an extraordinarily popular sport, but it was an extraordinarily popular sport 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. The hobby wasn't there. The cards weren't selling like that. North America suddenly decided that soccer was interesting during the pandemic, and those prices started shooting up. And there's nothing behind it other than the fact they didn't discover soccer. They didn't just realize soccer existed. It's been around a while. So, but if they get interested in hockey in a similar manner, there is the supply is the supply. And if the demand suddenly bumps up, you're going to see what you're going to see.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Legion just said he sent me the link via email. I guess that's to this exquisite Lafreniere. I'm just wondering where I'm checking emails. What email would you have sent that to? And was it the Sports Cards Live one? Because that's the only one I've ever publicized, but curious to know which email that went to, and I'll definitely check it out. So let's see what we talked about. Carlin's, we talked about name. So you are doing a live stream tomorrow night with a gentleman, a good friend of mine, who's actually been on 2 episodes of Sports Cards Live. He was on episodes, I believe it was 20 and 21.
They were consecutive.
Yeah. Amit Acharya, also known as 99 Goals or Titan Hockey Stick. He came on with me. Episode 20 for the Expo, virtual Expo preview. And then he came on with me again for episode 21 for the virtual Expo recap. One was a Wednesday, one was a Saturday, I believe. And so you've been teasing on your channel, Carlos, lately that, you do your mail videos. You've done a couple of live streams. You have some more live streams potentially in the works.
Mm-hmm.
How did it come? Tell me, how did it come about to get Amit to join you? And what do you have planned to do with him tomorrow on the show?
Sure. So there's 2 parts to it. So first part is I was talking to Amit about it a couple of weeks ago already. We've been I broached him with the idea of doing a live stream. And then I think he's building a state-of-the-art studio. So think like what Sportsnet has. This is what I've been promised. So if it falls short, that's Amit's fault. But he's going to have all the lights, HD camera. I think he's going to have 4D. He skipped past 3D into 4D, and that's holograms. So he's going to be chatting with himself via hologram. It's going to be interesting. But no, he was basically getting kind of his setup ready. Because I teased him a little bit about it because he was very proud of his webcam that he picked up, because he wanted to upgrade he wanted to look better, and which is fine. That's fair. And I said, no problem. And my answer was like, yeah, no pressure. That's fine. You let me know when you're comfortable and you're good with it. And then we'll set something up, because one thing, I don't have a set day that I do these live streams on. I've been pretty flexible to my guests. It's like, look, that's why I had Josh on like in the middle of the afternoon on a Friday. So it's not a normal time. Prime time would have been better, but it's the time that I could get them on that they'd be comfortable to sit down. And it still turned out the way I wanted. And
they live on in our YouTube archives anyway. Mm-hmm. So, which is why we're talking about it tonight. And I'm encouraging people, like, if you haven't seen it yet, go to Carlos's channel and watch the video with Josh, watch the video with Chris. If you're interested in card ladder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
No. And that's valid. And that's part of the reason why I'm okay with it, because it's like, okay, well, ideally, of course, you want to have it in prime time when the maximum amount of people can see it, the maximum of people can check it out live. That's the best, because then you can interact with the chat, do kind of what you do. It's nice to have appointment viewing. On this day at this time it is. Ideally, that would be great, but I also don't want to impose it on the guests, since a lot of times I'm just asking them for a favor, and a lot of times I'm cold calling. Amit, at least I know. So it's not a cold call, but at the same time, I was like, look, man, you got kids, you got stuff going on. Just tell me when you're comfortable and we'll make it happen that way. So that's why the date and time kind of worked out. I'm pretty flexible as long as nobody asked me to do something in the middle of the workday. My employer would probably frown upon that. Yeah. Aside from that, I'm pretty flexible.
Fair. So what do you guys have an agenda? Do you have topics built? I don't want any spoilers. I'm just
you already know I carefully, meticulously plan out with detailed bullet point notes. Amit and I basically chatted on the phone for an hour the other day, and after he was done, he was like, "Wait a minute, have we been talking for an hour?" I was like, "Yeah, buddy." Well, he was doing that. I was making cold brew coffee while we were talking. I had him on speakerphone. Yeah. But then I said, "Yeah, man," because he was worried. He was trying to figure out the same thing. He was like, well, what are we going to talk about? It's like, we're going to talk about the hobby, buddy. You've got plenty to talk about, I promise. Comsi is going to be a part of the conversation because he is very well versed. So I'll say that for sure. The rest of it, we're pretty flexible because there's a lot of interesting topics. Yeah. That's why I say, like, the reason there's so much room for so much content is I can have a show almost every day of the week and not hit the same topic twice and have plenty to talk about.
Well, Carlos, you like to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're a fast talker, but you somehow stay ahead of your thoughts very efficiently. So You're going to do the show with him tomorrow night. Do you have further guests lined up for your show for more live streams, or some that you're just working on right now?
I basically wing it. I wake up in the morning. I'm like, it'd be kind of cool to reach out to so and so. And
see, I wish I could wing it. The schedule I have of Wednesdays and Saturdays, it's getting to the point now where it's like, okay, it's like I kind of book my guests a month in advance, and then that month goes by. I get to the week before, it's like, I've got all these openings. I gotta book more guests, and but it's been working out for me.
I think the fact you have the scheduling though makes that kind of a necessity. You do kind of want to think a little bit ahead. So I'll use the Josh one as an example. The Josh one, I messaged him on Instagram. I had already laid the groundwork a little bit because I had said, hey, you know what? Chris had come on at some point. I'd like to have you on. And he goes, yeah, sure. No problem. Sounds good. I let it go for a couple of weeks because I was doing some other stuff and other videos and things. And then I said, hey man, you know what? Some interesting stuff's been going on. I think it's time to have the conversation. This was on Wednesday night, literally night into Thursday morning. So I said, when do you want to do it? We go back and forth. How about Friday afternoon? Cool.
Done.
Yeah. So it's pretty quick notice. If they have the availability, that's why the flexibility helps. Although, like I said, if I could do it on a scheduled time period, it would be so hard though to get guests, because you do have to kind of get them then to bend to your schedule. Yeah. And that does tend to get a little tricky.
It does. I've been very fortunate though. The guests have all been very willing to either stay up late if they're on the East Coast or start early. Even Chris Carlin tonight, his wife took the kids out to a movie. That worked out really well. So I want to show you. I've really only had 2 cards come in this week that I'm sharing. I've had a few Topps Project 2020s come in, but everyone knows what those look like, or you can go to their website and see. Sure. But two cards have come in, and one of them I think you might be somewhat interested in because it's a Dallas Stars card, and I know that you're a Dallas Stars fan, which is great. So you ready? 2 cards, only 2 cards. Last Saturday I had like 30 to show because I had a big ComC order. But 2 cards tonight. I'll show the Dallas card first. So I've spoken to this before. I showed this on Hobby Hotline today. That's what I did. Yeah, I showed it on Hobby Hotline. So Yam, if you're still out there, you've seen this card this morning. But Carlos O-Pee-Chee Platinum, there's all the parallels.
Yep, with the parallels.
The 1-of-1 parallels are called
Golden Treasure.
Golden Treasures.
Nice.
Tyler Sagan, O-Pee-Chee Platinum 2018-19 Golden Treasures. I've got about 6 of these from this year. This is the year I like the most. I think I've got about 6 of them now.
And was that on eBay or a different venue?
This was on eBay. It was a buy it now or best offer. of course, I paid more than I wanted to. I probably would have wanted. I don't know what this card is worth. I guess it's worth what I just paid for.
The problem is that there's the fundamental problem with the 1-of-1, because the Jamie Benn Golden Treasures is also on eBay.
Is it?
If you want to overpay for it, yeah.
Yeah,
I got it on my watch list.
What's the ask? 300.
The ask is 400, I believe.
400.
Yes, I believe that's right, and I can verify that, but I've got it here.
Yeah, check it out while you're checking it. The ask on this, I think it was $250 or $200, and I offered like 75, and it got rejected. And I offered 80, rejected, and then I offered 100, and it wasn't rejected. And then he came back at like 150, and I came back at $102.50. Yeah. And he came back at 120, and then I came back at 105, and he came back at 115 or 110. And anyway, it was like $110, which is probably more than, I'll get for it eventually. But I just think these are super cool cards. I love the Golden Treasures look. For the
second, I like that price. I think that's fair. And like I said, for comparison, the 1920 Platinum Golden Treasure Jamie Benn right now, 400 US.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not even in the ballpark.
No,
I have it on the watch list. I'm interested. I would be interested at the right price, but $400 US is not the right price. It is not.
No, it is not. It is not. Yeah, no, it is not. I think these cards, if you're a semi-star kind of player like a Sagan, right around $100 is fair. If you're a superstar, up to the $200 mark, and then if you're like an Ovechkin or a Crosby, I can see it going a bit higher than that even. But I was happy. I love the card. I think it's beautiful. The gold within the Golden Treasures goes really nice with the green and the jersey. I like that card. The second card I got, this is a set that I'm kind of loosely picking away at. It's from 1819 Upper Deck Series 1 hockey. And these are super tough to find. It's the 25 under 25 set. So 25 players that are under 25 years old. And this is the patch version out of 10.
Oh,
so
okay.
there's a base card with just no memorabilia. There's a jersey card. I'm not even sure if those are numbered. And then there's these patches out of 10. This is the Austin Matthews. And like there's 25 in the set. I think I have 6 or 7 now only. I'll probably never finish it. And it's not something I've really like scoured the earth for, but as they come up and the price is fair, I pick those up. So if anybody has any of these 25 under 25 from 18-19 Upper Deck Series 1 hockey, this is the patch variation out of 10. They often have edge issues. If you look at the bottom there, you can see there's a lot of white showing on the edge. That's just the way they are. I've really never seen one that doesn't have edge issues somewhere. I don't know why it is, but with
the dark colors, it's very hard not to get chipping.
But you know, we see cards with dark borders that come out without that chipping. I've several times. These are just particularly notorious for having some just light chipping along one or two of the edges. But you know what? I don't even care. Like it's still a cool card. I'm so happy to have it. I like the theme of it. So pretty cool there. What is a few comments here. Let's see what you guys are saying. Chris says go for the set. Well, I'll go. Which set, Chris? The golden treasure set, you say? Man, no way. That's impossible. But hey, it would be fun to do that if I could. Legion says we miss Pabs here in San Jose. Hope you guys appreciate him in Dallas. Pavelski. Yeah, that's I thought that was the downfall of the San Jose Sharks this year, was that trading away really a heart and soul kind of guy and a great player too. Like
you need that combination of players. It's one of those things where I found it very difficult to kind of fall in love with some of the teams that Dallas has put together the last couple of years. There was that team in 2015 that almost got to the Western Conference Finals. They were good, but they had bad goaltending. That's why I'm like mortified when I see like they're getting there, but they're getting there purely on grit and like duct tape and super glue. And it's like, oh my goodness.
And defense, right? Heiskanen and Klingberg are both amazing defensemen, offensive defensemen. Heiskanen is like he's a game controller. Like I think he's one of the best defensemen in the league right now, if not.
It's a good luxury to have, considering between the pipes, I have concerns.
You do, but the guys, maybe he's just overperforming. Khudobin looks like tonight he stopped 31 shots on 30. On
in 32. The playoffs, every couple of years, you get a guy like that. You know what? I will take it. Happily.
Yeah. But so Chris is saying here that the Sharks lost a whole lot more than Pavelski, combined with injuries and a stubborn coach, results in what you saw. Yes, but I think the biggest problem with what they did is they traded away Pavelski in order to free up cap space to be able to sign Erik Karlsson. Well, Erik Karlsson for 8 years at like 72 million or whatever they paid him, more 84 million, like 10 like 11 million a year. Like
that's a lot. Yeah.
That just is going to hand. That's the one of the worst signings I've seen in so long. Erik Karlsson is not on the upswing of his career. He's now got injury issues. I mean, that was just Doug Wilson messed that up badly, and I think that's going to cost him his job one way or another. If it hasn't yet, he's still there, right? Doug Wilson.
I haven't heard anything about it. Yeah,
no, I think he's still there. That's going to have to cost him his job, I think. Anyway, Legion, those are tough. Jeremy, nice pickup. Thank you, Legion. Now I don't know which card you're speaking of, Legion. Whether it's the Sagan Golden Treasures or the Austin.
Well, they're technically both tough pickups, Jeremy.
That's why I'm wondering which one. How about you? You got any cards to show that came in recently?
I can. Yeah, I can. So first, like this is one of the. Go ahead.
Before you do, he wasn't traded. He was a free agent, but he could have. They didn't sign him themselves. So my bad on the technical, but it's like they could have signed him.
The dollars were allocated.
The dollars were allocated very deliberately away from Pavelski and onto Erik Karlsson.
Yeah, for sure. So this is one of the ones that was the result of not winning the Shield. So we've got this was on the Instagram. You got the Pujols. And the thing is, I'm an advocate not only of the player, but also of having the numbered ones, having something where there is a cap to the actual production. That's a big thing, because if you look for some of those guys, even the Hall of Fame guys, and it's an unlimited production, it's not a bad thing. If you're a collector, get one, because these are quality all timers. But it's like, You and everybody and their brother is going to have one when the time comes. If your intention is to someday down the road flip it, it's like, yeah, you and your next door neighbor and their cousin and their dog has one, and like it gets tough to do. So that was kind of a fun one that I got, and I will once it comes in, I'll show it. But right now, these are my stature. This is kind of the stature that I have going on, and right now this is the rainbow that I already had. So I'll do that.
All Medanos.
So all the Medanos, yep. And then you've got the two stature. This is the portrait.
Yeah.
So those ones, there's a one of this. That's en route.
Cool.
And once that's done, that'll be a completed rainbow of that. And then that just leaves the Century Momentous, which is almost done minus one card.
Very nice. Very nice.
So for a new issue to be this close to done this soon is actually almost a record for me.
Well, and that just speaks to the success of the product in that it's being broken. It must be being widely broken.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember what YouTube channel I was watching just the other day. It might have been Filmington speaking about. Did you see you subscribe to Filmington?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's one of my favorites. I like a lot of the stuff he used to. I like that he talks analytically about it. I'm a big fan of when someone talks it through. Well, what you say about me talking, it's like, yeah, but I'm talking for a purpose. I'm not just talking to hear my own voice.
No.
I'm trying to make a point.
You're forming a case, you're forming an argument, and you're getting to something. And you often go off on tangents, Carlos, but you leave yourself breadcrumbs that you always know where you came from. Whereas myself, I can talk, go off on tangents, and then like, oh crap, where was I? What was I talking about at the beginning? And then I'm like, hey, Carlos, what was I talking about? But
most of those are for a purpose to get us back to where we started.
So this time I actually know where I was coming from. So I think it was Filmington, and he did put out a video not too long ago where it was like 10 topics I'm going to talk about. And it was
yeah. Like it was like 12 or something like that. But yeah, 12, I know what
12 topics, whichever it was. And I think it was one of the last topics. He was talking about how I don't know if it was him or not. I gotta think about it. But anyway, whoever it was talking about, they were looking at the Juan Soto and the Acuna, basically the basic Topps paper rookie card. And they were looking at the population in PSA 10s and comparing it to the population of PSA 10s of other major rookie cards, like whether it was as simple as a Kobe Bryant Topps Chrome or a Sidney Crosby Young Guns, right? They were making these comparisons between cards of 2019. Oh, wait a second. This person was breaking down the eras. He basically broke down and started a new era that started in 2019. God, I wish I could remember which channel this was.
Okay.
But the purpose of the whole thing was that, because it speaks to what you were saying about the Pujols with the numbering on it, that a lot of these cards that are coming out today, the amount of copies being graded is more than we've seen, to the point where it's very similar to what was happening in the early 1990s with overproduction, because there are more Zion Williamson Prism rookies graded. There's more Sotos, there's more Acuñas graded than there are guys like Chipper Jones or, some of these early 90s guys that were part of the junk wax era with overproduction. So the argument was, are we seeing similarities to the early 90s, the boom and then bust era, or are we not? And I'm gonna have to rack my brain or look at my watched videos to see which one it was, because it was. Can I
rebut that process? I think there's a discussion here. It's a good one. Go ahead.
You can certainly rebut it, but you're not.
I get you. I get you. You're presenting though the argument that they brought up in their content, which is fine.
And I recognize I didn't do a great job because I wasn't planning to talk about it, but you triggered something in my mind that made me think about it, and now I'm going to try and figure out who's.
Spontaneity! I love it. Fantastic. So let me kind of just talk to that, because I've heard this in a couple of different places. So I'm not sure if I've seen the specific piece of content you're referring to, but I've definitely heard this argument, and I get it and I understand it. But there's two factors that we kind of have to bear in mind. Number one, people are more inclined to grade their cards now than they would have in the past. Like Chipper Jones, one of his rookie cards is 1991 Topps. They might still be printing it behind my house. Like if you want more PSA 10s, we can get you some. Hang out for an hour and I'll get you some. But it wasn't worth enough money for the longest time to grade them. So, and there's still unopened boxes out there, like cases upon cases upon cases. So to compare it to the 90s, no. The where I could see an argument being made, a legitimate one, is I think there are less collectors today than there were in the 90s, because in the 90s there was just it got critical mass. It got so many people into it that were involved in the hobby that you could go to the convenience store. It's the opposite of today. Today you can't get retail because people are hoarding it. But back in the day, they could have tried to hoard it, but it's like, are you going to hoard it at the convenience store? Are you going to hoard it at the, at the Walmart? Are you going to hoard it at the Target? Are you going to hoard it at, because guess what? As soon as you do that, they're going to bring out 50 more cases.
Yeah.
And 100 more cases and 1,000 more cases. And then your dealer has 100 cases. That was the 90s overproduction era.
It's true.
We're nowhere close to that. But we
You're
also
right.
have less collectors. So it kind of balances out. What you're trying to figure out is if the ratio is similar. That's a different conversation.
So I found the video. It was
Okay,
not. Apologies to Filmington. It was not Filmington's video.
Okay.
It was Tyler Short.
The name rings a bell. Does he do a lot of hobby content?
Yeah, he does. He's he does. He's got a great here. I'll just quickly share my screen to show everybody else, because I'll say I was really impressed with this guy's video, and I've seen a few of his videos before. So here's his channel.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and it's the video. It's this one here. Collapse of the 80s market. Are we repeating? Now I don't recall if he really makes a conclusion on that and says that we are or we aren't, but I'll tell you, Carlos, you're gonna like this video. It's 28 minutes long, because it's not just spitballing. The guy's actually got logic in what he's saying. So I think this video down here, guys. Collapse of the 80s market. Are we repeating? Episode 61. His channel is simply called Tyler Short. I recommend watching it. I thought it was excellent. He just did a great job. So
yeah. So two things. I knew I had seen it before. So if you scroll down, the video right before that, where he basically says worst PSA order of all time, I've seen that video.
Okay.
And now the other one is on my watch list. I'll check that out.
Yeah, check it out. And I recommend it for anybody else watching right now. He's quickly become one of my top favorite YouTube shows, YouTube channels.
I like anybody, and this is maybe a good point to make here. If any of you have ever seen any of my content, sometimes it may come off like I'm a know-it-all, or I'm trying to prescribe something to you, and hopefully it doesn't, because I'm not the final word on anything. I have an opinion, but it is an informed opinion, and hopefully I present it to you. And then if you don't agree with me, I love that too. Because if you don't agree with me, then tell me why.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
Here's the thing, man. People like, okay, I'm just going to say it. It's just take it for it. People like you, and what I mean is people who speak with authority and confidence in what they're saying, can oftentimes be, I find can be, you can just get annoyed with them because they seem smug. I think that might be the word. Some people. In
fairness, I am smug, but please continue.
But you come off with some smugness, but you do it in just like a way that isn't offensive or doesn't put other people down, or you just have a way. Take it as
lighthearted, guys. I'm in on the joke. Take it as lighthearted, because I don't take myself that seriously. You should probably know that I don't take myself that seriously.
Yeah, no, but you're a smart guy. I mean, I say that with just genuinely say that you're a smart guy. I recognize that you're smarter than me. I think I'm a decently smart guy. You're definitely smarter than I am, and you're a quick thinker. And you even the way you challenged Chris and Josh from Card Ladder on both of them, and they're two very intelligent guys. But you did it, yet they both responded well to you. They didn't take offense to it or try and one-up you. There's no one-upping going on. You're not a one-upper. You're not someone who says it and then basically is like, bugger off. You're open to discussion. Some people that I know, come across as a bit of a know-it-all, let's say, but they do it in a way that is endearing. You do it with an endearing way. Anyway, it's not about let's compliment Carlos tonight.
Oh no, I thought this was the whole point of this show. I was told that it was just praise me. That was the point here.
There you go, in an endearing way.
Yeah.
A couple comments have rolled in, and let's just see what we have here. The Matthews sick card. Yes, thank you, Legion. I showed it. Brian says, stop, Carlos. I love those cards so much. I'm going to cry. Really nice, though. Legion Stature is a great product.
I like it. I like it for what it is. I think the parallels are fair. The key, there were 5 of them. I thought that was fair. And the most limited one was out of 15, which is reasonable. That's not like ridiculous. It was attainable. It was doable.
For sure.
I've seen worse.
Chris West managed to knock off all the Marcus Sorensen MVP other than the base already. Well, leave the easiest to last, cool. Chris. That makes sense to me.
That's all right.
Legion says there's definitely parallels from the previous mark. Oh, so there's the conversation that we were starting on, and I got us off track.
That's fine.
In terms of there, I agree, Legion. There's definitely
there's always anytime there's a sudden inflation in a short period of time in prices, you're going to see parallels. You're not wrong. There's 100% valid. And the reason why I'm always happy to do the debate is because guess what? There is a case to be made. There's a strong case to be made for what you're saying. A very strong case. And I'm happy to hear it because you're not wrong. That's why I said the question we're asking is not whether there's more popularity in a suddenly. The question is the proportion work? Because yes, they're producing more product, but they're also less collectors than there were back then. So has it skewed so far that every man, woman, and child has 5 cards? If the answer is yes, then yeah, we're there. Because that's where we were in the 90s. Everybody could have had 5 of everything. We're not there yet.
I lived through the early 90s. I'm sure many of you did too. You too, Carlos. I had a card shop in Winnipeg from 1991 to 94, I believe. I believe we stopped in 94. And it was like, it was just a hole in the wall store, but we were busy. People that I knew just from other areas of my life were coming in and buying cards. It's like, you don't collect cards. Well, yeah, doesn't everybody collect cards? I mean, I did a giveaway. It was for a Brett Hull rookie card. It was like for every $10 you spent, you got 1 entry.
Okay.
We probably had, 1,000 entries into that thing. It was crazy. It was just back in those days, like you said, Carlos, everybody collected. Everybody, like, it didn't matter who you were. It was crazy. We're not there yet.
That's going to be your indicator, though. When everybody around you, if you randomly go out on the street right now and ask somebody if they collect cards, and you get more than like random looks, if you get a lot of people like, yeah, for sure, yeah, I buy a bunch of this, and this, then that's when you should be kind of worried. That's when you should be like, it's time to sell. Yeah. Not everything, but it's definitely time to sell some stuff.
And we're not there yet. But where we are now is that people are approaching me just because they know I'm a card guy, and they're being like, hey, what was that card that just sold for like $4 million? So we may be in the early stages of it, like the very early stages of everybody and their dog collecting cards. But I don't know that we're going to get there again, because it's really price prohibitive to a lot of people to collect at the level that they would want to. Or back in the day, there was only 1 set of cards. Well, okay, in 1990, 91, there were 4 or 5 sets of cards for each sport, but that was it, 4 or 5 sets. Yeah. Now you've got 20, 30, and the entry point is just so much higher for the cards that, most people want. I know you can get the lower end, the $2-3 packs still, but
I was about to say that during the height of the 90s, the other big piece is that outside of like Upper Deck, there were almost no premium products. Everything was kind of like at the same level. Exactly. Now, what the secondary market did was a different conversation. I'm talking about, though, the packs that you could buy were right around the same price. Today, there's stuff that's super duper duper limited, super expensive. Mosaic Football right now is about a $700 a box product, and it's a brand new product that just introduced. $700 a box, and most of what you're getting is a couple autographs and some parallels, some colored parallels. That is what there's. So if O-Pee-Chee Platinum, to put it into perspective, if O-Pee-Chee Platinum comes out next year and is $600 a box and gives you basically the same product, you should be asking questions.
Yeah.
Because that's basically what I'm just talking about.
Yeah.
That should frighten. But also it also keeps the amount of people that can play that game lower.
Yeah.
Because the manufacturer, we're going to get our cut, which means we're going to boost that price per box.
For sure. No, well said, man. Well said. I agree completely with all that. Chris asks a very interesting question that we all would like to know, because that would give us an indication as to print runs. Is I wonder what percentage of these new rookies are being graded. I mean, I'm going to step in first, Carlos, and say, I think it's more than ever before. I think that's kind of obvious. And I'm going to throw out a number. I'm just going to think about it. I'm going to throw it now. I think because Beckett and PSA are so behind in their grading, and I think people are less likely to send in cards right now because they know that they might have to wait a year to get
Can I
them
ask
back.
one question that would impact this, though? One question
Right?
that would directly impact this question?
Yeah.
When he says percentage of new rookies, are you talking about ones that are numbered or ones that have no numbering, like a Young Guns? Or are you talking about something that actually has some kind of a limit, even if it's a base card?
I'm thinking about the unnumbered.
Sure, that's fine.
For me, I'm thinking of the commodity card, the Zion Williamson base Prism.
I just wanted to understand what we were answering for.
Yep.
I just wanted to understand what we were answering for.
Excellent to clarify, and that was my assumption that I didn't verbalize. But
that's fine.
So I'm going to say that once if the grading companies were caught up and they were turning cards around in their normally publicized turnaround times, I would venture to guess that number is very high, like well above 50% are being graded. I would venture to say somewhere in the 75% range are being graded or will be graded in time, like within a year of coming out. To the extent, by that I mean those that are actually cracked.
Okay.
Those that
are
cracked.
open. Yeah, that are pulled.
Yeah, that are open. And that's a high percent, right? Because you're talking retail, but it seems like retail is being snapped up by people that are sending off all their cards to Becky. You see guys on Instagram showing stacks and stacks of Luka-based prisms, stacks of Zion-based prisms graded. Like there's tons of them. I don't want to. We're already at the hour mark, Carlos, and I don't want to go much longer just because I'm tired. But I'm curious. I throw out 75%. What were you thinking?
If we're talking about unnumbered, I'm going to go like a 40 to 45. Still a high percentage, but I feel like there's more production than I think people give it credit for. So yes, there are tens of thousands that are going to end up graded, but I think there's probably a production run of like 50, 60, 70,000.
Okay.
So if you grade 20 or 30,000, you're getting close to that half point mark, but that still leaves a lot that are ungraded.
Yeah. And Chris confirms he was talking about the general commodity rookies.
Okay.
Back in time here, Legion says if there's going to be any praise, it's not going to be for Carlos. It's going to be for name. Now,
I didn't see they're not going to be for Carlos.
That's
an exclusive.
I was paraphrasing.
I feel like you're putting words in the man's mouth. I feel like there's enough room for praise for both of us. Like he did a thing. Yeah, good for him. Good for him and his community. That's nice. Wonderful. When he makes YouTube videos, we'll talk. Get out of here.
Chris says, when will the market reach saturation point? Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're there yet. I think we're a ways away myself. I think there's going to be more and more new entrants coming in because, as Ken Golden said, he thinks, and I know this is becoming a bit cliche, Ken Golden thinks that we're in the third inning of a 9-inning game. I'm not in a position to necessarily disagree with him. I don't have the intelligence that he has in terms of who these buyers are, how many names he has on his, he says he's got, I think he said 50,000 or 500,000 people on his list.
I believe him. I have no reason not to believe him, but the only thing I would push back with, go ahead.
So I was just saying, no reason not to believe him, but is he seeing the whole hobby? Is he seeing a true cross section of the hobby, or is he just seeing the highest end of the hobby?
Yes. Yeah. The answer, I think Chris poses an excellent question, and it's the ultimate question, right? It's the question.
Yeah.
I actually think the answer to your question, Chris, will be the moment that we get a real correction. You're going to get the answer to your question because some of the folks that are entering are standing on quicksand. It's not solid ground. There's hobbyists like myself who at this point, I'm standing on bedrock. I'm probably not going to move. Like it would take something catastrophic. And even then, like all my cards could go to zero. I really don't care. Nothing personal, but I genuinely don't care. So for me, I'm standing on bedrock. I'm very comfortable where I am. I'll buy all your stuff for nothing when it goes to zero. Cool. Yeah. But for those folks that are entering the market because they're seeing these prices, to the Ken Golden example, though, if the next time that Superfractor Trout comes out, the next time it sells for 150,000, because suddenly the market collapsed on it and the market collapsed on other thing, and now we're not breaking records, we're going backwards, and we're going backwards strongly. Is he going to want to push out there that we're in the third inning?
Yeah.
He might be a little less eager with that third inning analogy.
For sure. You talked about the quicksand and the bedrock, and I think a lot of collectors are on bedrock. A lot of us are. The ones who aren't, the collectors who I believe are on quicksand, are a lot of the people who have come in very recently and are quite enamored with this year's rookies because we're seeing big, like it comes right back down to the price of a box of wax, of Prism, Mosaic, basketball, football, whatever it is. I mean, these were $125 boxes 2 years ago. Now they're $700-800 boxes. People coming in, spending that kind of money, and now these prices of PSA 10s of these rookies are supporting the box, the unopened box prices. When these players don't turn into what people think they're going to turn into, like the bowl effect kind of thing, that's when we're going to see what you indicated will be the first sign of it, Carlos, which is the correction, is when those people realize, hey, I love, we came in guns a-blazing, but we were aiming at the wrong targets. And are they going to then shift their aim to the smarter targets, like seasoned and savvy collectors like I consider myself to be or are they going to leave altogether, take their loss and move on because they figure, oh, it didn't work? I think that's where the question lies.
I think there's one more variable as well. Your pointers are very valid. There's one more variable you also have to take into account. Because of all these new market entrants and them coming in, running in with money, we've seen this phenomenon in other investments, by the way. In stocks, this happens. If a company gets too hyped too early, they move their price to a point at which they're already at a price that would normally be reserved for already sustained, consistent profitability when they're basically an IPO. Well, then what happens is when they come out, they can show a profit, but it's still a disappointment because you gave me this and I was actually expecting this because you've already priced that in. In 5 years, this would have made sense. Right now, it doesn't. So now actually this is a disappointment. Even though you did perform, even though you still did you were profitable, you were not profitable enough. And with the new crop of players, if I'm already shooting them into LeBron James price territory and they're anything short of LeBron James, we have disappointed, even though they could be a perennial all-star, even though they could be an excellent player, but you're not pricing it at excellent player. They didn't go up organically and slowly. They jump straight to LeBron James and they're not LeBron James.
Exactly. That's so right. That's so right. You look at a player like Zion Williamson, who is a prime example. His cards were selling for the same prices that Kawhi Leonard's cards were selling for example. And
their resumes don't match.
What's that?
Their resumes don't match right now.
Well, one guy has one guy doesn't.
That's what I'm saying, though. They can't match. It's not fair.
Like in hockey, why does Connor McDavid, and I'm going to use Future Watch autos for this because I follow them. Why is Connor McDavid's Future Watch autograph rookie selling for more than Sidney Crosby's? It makes no sense to me. But it's because he's the flavor of the day. There's so much potential and hope built into his price that if he doesn't win 2 Stanley Cups, a gold medal, 3 Hart trophies, and an Art Ross, is he going to maintain? I mean, I hope he does, but is he? It doesn't matter what I hope. It matters whether or not he will. So I think a lot of the new entrants into the hobby are coming in and they're paying prices that have historically been reserved for the best of the best. And now the new guys who are people want to be the best of the next generation of the best are being priced that way. So that's interesting stuff. Time will tell on all of this. None of us can predict the future, unfortunately, or else we all wouldn't be here, or we'd be here, but we'd also be here on our yachts doing it from a beautiful resort town or something like that.
Maybe by the next episode, Jeremy. I'm working on it. Still getting built.
Maybe we'll be there then. Chris wants to know, when was the original Wagner sold for big money? So that was sold to Wayne Gretzky and Bruce McNall. I mean, that's in the 90s. I don't know if it was the early
91.
90s. It was that early.
Right about 91. Well, don't forget, that was the first PSA card graded.
Yeah.
That was in 1991. So I'm pretty sure it was right around there. You can Google it, but I'm pretty sure it's right around 91 because that was also around the same time that John Candy and Wayne Gretzky and a couple of them went in on the Toronto Argonauts. That's same time period, about 91, give or take.
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit later, but you're probably right. Legion says, I saw baseball cards at the grocery store the other day. That got my attention. Yeah, I mean, it's always cool. As collectors, we always notice these things, no matter what kind of store or retail setting we're in.
But the sad part is that used to be common. I used to go to the grocery store and they had baseball cards there all the time. The buy away, the whatever. It always had baseball cards. Not anymore.
Well, and then Brian goes to ask which one, and it was a Save Mart. This user says, they are up no doubt 3 times over the past 3 to 5 years in print runs.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
The exact number we don't know, but definitely higher. Yes,
it's definitely higher. And 3 to 5, 3 times. I think what you're saying there, person whose name I'm not sure of. I think you're saying at least three times. By when you preface it with the no doubt, I think you mean at least 3 times. So, and I agree with that. I really do agree with that. Yes, Chris said the general commodity rookies. I agree with Carlos. It's probably less than 40%. Yeah.
It depends on the print run. The print run's the final answer to this, because even if a ton are graded, it depends on what the final print run is.
Of course.
And we don't know.
And we'll never know. But when we see 20,000 between PSA and Beckett, and you're seeing 20,000 total graded Zions, is the print run 30,000, 40, 50, 60, 70? That'll I'm probably really, yeah. I think if I think about it, 75% is high, but I mean, it might get there in a couple of years. It might eventually get there. Who's going to have a raw cart? No one's going to want the raw copy unless you're building sets. And let's face it, very few people are building sets of this stuff compared to the way they used to.
It'll also depend on if his price if he continues to sustain a good price, because if his price starts to get hurt, then it'll become less interesting to expend the extra expense to potentially gain very little.
100%. Joe says, what do you guys foresee with the new trend of retail flipping and people camping out at Walmart and Target? Will there be an adjustment by major card companies to reconsider the dissemination of product? I mean, we've already seen that by Panini. Carlos, go ahead.
Okay. So 2 things. So Joe, beautiful question. I love it. I also want you to know that Amit and I are going to talk about this topic. We already kind of broached it a little bit, but I'll give you a little bit of what I think about right now. It's not a new trend though. Like people hoarding the stuff. Again, the thing with the overproduction era is people were trying to do it, but there was just so much you couldn't hoard it. Like literally.
In the early 90s, I used to go to Costco on the day that I knew they were getting their card. And I'm talking about 91, 92 Upper Deck hockey. Like
this isn't new. What's old is new again, guys. Just so you know, this isn't new. It's just there was so much before that didn't matter. Oh yeah, clear out the shelves. What are you doing? I'm going to refill the shelf now with the additional cases we have.
The next pallet.
Yes, it's like the next guy can come and clear our shelves. But to answer your question though, the short answer, what I believe, yes, the companies will consider it, but, and this is something that I'm thinking about and something I've been hearing a little bit of rumors about. What about the Walmart and Target? What about them carrying less of the product or none of the product? Because their margins are very low on this stuff. And to be honest, it takes up a ton of shelf space that could be better used to higher margin products. And if people are camping out and loitering in the store, it's a pain in the ass. Why would they even want to deal with it? And people are, and some of the distributors or the folks that are filling those shelves are getting harassed. Yeah. So why would they deal with additional security they suddenly have to do? They suddenly have to monitor these shelves and be like, get the loiterers out of there when it's a low margin product. They're not making any extra money from this. Whether they sell out, they don't care. It doesn't make any difference. So you know what you could do? You could decrease the amount of shelf space. You could put it behind a lock and key and slowly shrink the amount. And then Topps and Panini and those guys would end up having more of their own product left. But then they start selling it to you direct to market. And so the Walmart, yeah, but I'm saying more. Like eventually all the retail product could just become, it's directly through Topps and Panini and Upper Deck and whatever. And it might not even be in the store anymore.
Well, I completely hear what you're saying. And I agree that, this is one industry where, and I forget who said it on the show in a recent episode, there's 5 levels of profit that need to be built into these cards. Right. I mean, I'll go through them. There's the manufacturer, there's the distributor, there's the retailer, there's and then there's the retailer, and then there's the customer, right? Because then you need to flip it. And then there was another one in there. I forget who it was, but I believe someone spoke through this with me, or I heard them speaking about it. And there were 5 different levels of profit that need to happen. So and when you're the manufacturer and you see that there's so many more people making money after you, why? And in today's world of, global economy and connectivity, and I say this very cautiously, what is the necessity for the local card shop? Why are they, I mean, everyone always says, we got to support the LCSs. We got to support the LCSs. They're critical to the hobby. Why are they critical to the hobby when, it's the one industry that bricks and mortar are critical to? Is it, I'm playing with one of my daughter's hair bands right now. It flicked off.
Too much information. Just too much.
It flicked off. No, check. It flicked off my thumb, hit my light, and bounced down and landed in my glass of water.
Nice.
Anyway, it's a green.
After hours.
After hours, no holds barred. So, you know, I love local card shops, and I got friends that own them, and I don't want to see them go away. But if I take off that hat and I put on the, the others, the play the devil's advocate there, and I think, why do we still need local card shops when you can do everything you need to do in the hobby really from the comfort of your own house, and we can meet up at card shops every so often? I understand. I don't love it because it's hurting small business, but I understand why Panini has basically cut out the local card shop in terms of Canadian distribution point. They can't get it up here anymore. They're not distributing Panini basketball product to Canada, is my understanding. Those guys are buying it on the secondary market, and they can sell it on their own website for full fair market value, being $700 a box instead of wholesaling it or pre-wholesaling it at $100 a box. Of course, they want more of the pie when they see what their creations are doing on the secondary market. I just don't know what the right answer there is. And I wonder, opening up a card shop right now, I think is going to be fairly risky because, if Topps decides to follow suit and they have their fair share of direct to consumer products, if Upper Deck follows suit and they have their share of direct to consumer products through the EPAC platform, is that good? What's going to happen to the local card shops? And is that, with 5 layers of profit built in, who can be eliminated?
Yeah, that was a big part of it, is that as soon as all it takes is one executive at the manufacturer to basically outline the case you just made. Guys, they're making all the money. We make the same amount. As long as we sell out our product, we make the same amount
every year.
We can try to increase the dollar amount. We can try to increase the suggested retail, whatever, or we can increase production. But they're going to look at it like, well, if we increase production, we're potentially hurting ourselves down the road. Well, why don't we just cut out the middleman? We'll keep the price. We can even keep the price the same as what they were charging, but we'll sell it directly, and the additional profit goes straight to us.
Yeah.
And then from the perspective of the local LCS, they become redundant, unnecessary. And then if you want to run your own card shop, you run it virtually. There's almost no reason to have a storefront then, because that's additional cost, and you don't have the product to bring people in the door, and you can just sell it online.
Yeah. No. So down below here, Frank says, so if they want to cut out the LCS, what's next? Card shows? Will everything be from home? Well, we saw in June that the Expo had a virtual show, and I'll tell you, Frank and Carlos, I've done Expo for 15 years. I've probably done 30 of them. My second best card show ever in terms of pure dollars revenue, and I've had some pretty good ones, was the virtual Expo in June. It was my second best card show ever, just in terms of dollars sold.
Okay.
Why do I need to spend $2,000 to travel to Toronto, get a hotel room, rent a car, buy a booth, rent showcases, when I did it from my own house for $200, or whatever I paid for the booth? It was cheap compared to going there. So, I mean, I understand the comment, what's next, but what drives business isn't emotion about collectors that want to congregate. What drives business are dollars and cents. Yeah. And where you can cut costs, you're going to save money, where therefore you're making more money. And this is an unpopular opinion, but I'm not gonna say that out loud because I actually don't believe it. So I won't say what I was about to say.
Can I say a quick thing about that though? Your point's valid. But I'll say a quick thing about that. One thing though, Frankie, do you have to bear in mind as well is that not all dealers rely on the wax. Like it's a part of the business, but if you're maybe not a full-time LCS and you take up at a card show, again, we're talking in a post-COVID time when you can actually physically be in proximity. So let's say the National or something like that, if that becomes available. The next National, I think Chicago, right, is supposed to be, if they're able to get it off. So let's say they do. There's still going to be dealers there who are going to do great business at the tables because they're going to say, but they're probably just not going to rely on wax. Now, there are dealers that exclusively work on wax. They've got a problem. A real big problem if this was to come to pass. But for dealers who are dealing in actual trade, even the ones that do trades as well and things like that, they can still do a booming business, still trading the assets, because we can, through eBay, ComC, a variety, Slab Stocks, a bunch of other platforms, we can trade online now and they still do the shows.
Yeah.
So the singles were not replaced by the internet.
Yeah. And what I was going to say earlier is that the other thing is that in terms of Frank's comment about what's next, card shows disappearing. Well, card shows are driven are originally were driven by collectors, not by the industry. They were driven by collectors wanting to get together, and I don't think that's ever going to stop because we're social animals at the core of who we are as humans. We need social interaction, and I mean, but that said, like right here, Carlos, we're hanging out. Like I can't reach out and touch you. I can't give you a fist pump or a handshake, but this, technology has come to the point where we can have virtual social interactions. And let's face it, due to COVID, society's getting more used to it and more accepting of it as a way to do that. So, I don't want card shows to go away because I want to see people in person. I want to look and touch a card before I buy it. Right.
But let's be fair about one thing, Jeremy. Part of the appeal of like
where was I being unfair? Where was I being unfair?
No. 1 second. Your point's valid, but there's one thing. Part of the appeal of going to the expo is hanging out at the pub after. The cards are great. But listen, I don't need to go to the show for cards anymore. I go, it's like, all right, we're going to go get a pint. Great. Let's go get some food.
Yeah, it's about the social. It's about the pre-expo Thursday dinner that we host because of Hobby Insider, and now I'm going to mix that with this, and we're going to invite everybody to that. It's that. It's the trade nights on the Sunday night. It's hanging out at the show. It's doing deals in person. I don't think that's ever going to go away. I really don't.
There's still an appeal to it. There's still an appeal to it that you can't match with the online version. Like while I was watching your show, I bought like 5 cards online while I was watching the show. Listening to everyone's sadness and the tears, everyone's.
And going to a show is different than hanging out at an LCS, right? It's a different experience, right? But you need a pack of sleeves or some top loaders. It's nice to run to the card shop and grab and not have to wait for the shipment to come in a week or so. Until Amazon takes over the hobby, then it's all same day, right? But who knows if that's going to happen. But I mean, I just, it's unfortunate that basketball, what's happened is basketball has led this drive, and Panini has caught on and started to sell direct to consumer, just like they would, because they want more of the profit. And if I'm Panini, I'm a shareholder of Panini. I can't say I do it much differently. And, I'm going to get a lot of hate at me for it, but what do I care if my shareholders are making 5 times more money than they were before? It's not, that's what it's about, business. And I think a lot of hobbyists and collectors forget that card companies are not profit-oriented organizations. They are for profit. They are there to make money for their shareholders, their owners, whoever that is. That's their sole purpose of being in business, is to make money. It's not to give charity. I'm not saying it's charity, but it's not to just give away their profits to some other entity. So I don't know.
It feels cynical, but it's not. It's just looking at it from the perspective of who is making the cards. They're not doing it for fun.
That's right.
The people in there might be having fun. I've worked at a lot of places that aren't fun externally in terms of the business they do, but the people inside the office have fun. But that's two different things. The product's the product, and the product is for profit. That's what it's designed for.
Let's look at some comments because we got a bunch coming in here.
Yeah, there's some good ones I saw, I think, in there.
Yeah, let's see. People love buying the hype. We'll never know unless there's a lawsuit that drags it. We'll never know unless there's a lawsuit that drags it out like early Upper Deck year print runs. Yeah, we're never going to find out the print runs. I mean, I'm pretty tight with some people at some card companies, and I can't weasel any of that information out of them. These guys are,
But also, what's the incentive? Like, why do they need to tell you the print runs unless they promised you a certain print run?
Well, like, but at the same time, why do they need to not tell you? I mean, and they've explained it on this show even why they don't do it. It's part of the mystique of the product, right? Joe, they're going to print more or put less in boxes. Okay, Chris says retail arbitrage is a big thing now. Tons of videos on Instagram all about it for sure. Great topic and discussion. Thank you, Boston Herb. Welcome to the show. Chris says just wait until they move to retail. They move the retail to a site like Amazon. Yeah, I mean, it's might not be that far away. Card collector, welcome to the show. Great to see you.
By the way, I bought this on Amazon Prime.
Did you?
I just bought it for fun. I just wanted a blaster to open, and I bought it, and it basically cost me retail. I bought it on Amazon Prime.
Well, there you go.
I shipped it with another product, and it came in the same box.
Yeah.
It's already there, guys.
Do you think Lafreniere will generate a McDavid-like frenzy for next year's cards? I don't think quite as high as McDavid. Kind of off topic, which is cool. I would say no. My answer to that is no. It'll be more like a Tavares or Stamkos type of frenzy than we saw with McDavid, is my opinion. Brett says, could the hobby exist without bricks and mortar? Sure, but I would be interested in knowing how quickly collectors would exit the hobby. Person to person is important in my opinion. I completely agree, but I don't know that bricks and mortar are the only channel to person. I think card shows are a channel. And even though we're not physically in the same room, Carlos and I and all the people watching right now, we are still having person to person interaction. I still feel like we're having that interaction. So Brett,
we're also having a debate and discussing the hobby in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night in our own homes. Yeah, which is pretty awesome. But these conversations used to happen before streaming and before the video like we have it now. These would happen in card shops. Mm-hmm. So I think right there we see that you don't need a card shop to have these discussions. But
it is nice to do it at a countertop in a card shop. Like the thing is sometimes, and Brett's 100% on. I think it's a good point he makes. See, I'm so conciliatory today. But the thing is that the other thing, there was a lot of what we do in the hobby is hinged upon our nostalgia. We think back to the day when Jeremy was playing with something and got it in his glass, like earlier today. But we also think back nostalgically. Look at that.
You see it? There it is.
Nice.
There's the green elastic at the bottom of my glass, which I just drank anyway.
But we also think back nostalgically to like when we went to the card shop and opened packs and we're chatting and hanging out and trading the cards and all that. And that's all fine. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. This hobby is basically built on nostalgia. It's designed with nostalgia here. But at the same time, it's like, guys, that was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
That was 25 years ago. Yes, we still go to the card shop and do it. But if you're going to the card shop, when you're opening those packs today, there's a good chance you're also kind of in the back of your mind thinking, oh, well, I wonder what the eBay comp is. I wonder how it's expensive.
And sorry, Carl, but the other thing is that nowadays, like you just said, you bought 5 cards on your phone while you were watching the first episode tonight. Yep. I mean, that money would have been spent at a card shop 15 years ago before we had these handy little devices where, I mean, I've said it on the show before. I buy cards no matter where I am. I buy cards at work. I buy cards when I'm in the bathroom. I buy cards I buy them when I'm driving. I buy them no matter what I'm doing. I mean, it doesn't even matter. Like
one of those cards was also a best offer where I had been negotiating back and forth with the seller. So we were haggling on the app. We were going back and forth on the app to come up with the final price.
Right. And if we didn't have, so like right there, hobby dollars are moving from the LCS to some remote seller somewhere else. So the bad side of that is it hurts the LCS because now you're not waiting a week to go to the store once a week and buy your products there because that's your source. The other part of it though is that we have a much tighter community. We can access cards that we couldn't access before. You know, there's so many moving parts in all this that I think we're trending away from physical bricks and mortar stuff. And we're still early on in that because there's still lots of card shops and card shops are still opening all the time. I see people posting just opened a store and that's great. But as long as because the card companies, they are the ones that really hold the power here and as to how are they going to distribute. And, you know, I love what Upper Deck's done with their hockey card day, and they have baseball card day in the States. And that's there to drive business to the LCSs because those cards are given to the LCSs. So, you know, it's kind of like they're doing that still, but what are they doing that's hurting the LCSs? Like, you know, people argue EPAC hurts it, direct to consumer hurts it. Lots of moving parts. Let's keep running through here. Brett says, I remember back in the early 90s, card shows were every other weekend. Now it's once a month. If lucky, the monthly card show is on the verge of becoming extinct. Yeah, fair.
There's also one more point about what Brett was saying, which is also valid about what he just said. I'll give you a quick example of a transaction that wouldn't have been possible in the brick and mortar era. That one of one that I mentioned, it was on eBay, yes. But I was in touch with that seller before it ever hit eBay because somebody on a Facebook group saw him post it, asked them to reach out to me, and we had been talking on and off for weeks where I was basically trying to convince him he was out of his damn mind with the price he was trying to go for. And we were able to get it down. What's that?
What did he want for it pre-eBay?
1,000.
1,000. Oh, so he got about that. Yeah.
No, he didn't get close to that.
He got 800 and something.
No, not even close.
I thought you said you.
No, that you're thinking about the shield that I didn't win.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the one of one that is for the stature.
I
did pick up. That was a different thing. His original starting point though was 1,000, and he kept trying to lower the price. But the only reason I was able to be in touch with him, I was talking to him on Instagram, And I told him flat out, that deal you got? Because he didn't know I was the eBay person who made the offer. So he said, is this you? And I go, yes. And you better accept the offer because it's not going a penny higher. In fact, I'm thinking about retracting it and going lower. And he goes, got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wouldn't have been possible in the brick and mortar era, though, because he would have pulled it somewhere in Detroit and I would have never heard about it.
Exactly. Legion says, I really enjoyed the virtual expo being from California. It was a virtual win. Got no peachy Bobby Clark rookie for a great price. Yeah.
Sweet. Nice.
Yeah.
That's
Couldn't
cool.
find that at your LCS in California, probably. Peter says, for Upper Deck, aren't they going to be stuck with a lot of product? I thought distributors were forcing LCSs to purchase a lot of the less desired product in order to get the Cup SB Authentic allocation. That is my understanding. But, when Upper Deck gets stuck with products once in a while, and then they just don't make that product the next year, and the stuff is blown out. So,
but would they even be stuck with the product right now with how hot the hobby is right now? Like,
well, and with the distributors forcing card shops to buy the lower end product in order to get allocation for the higher end product.
And maybe the LCS would buy from Upper Deck online and just get it directly from Upper Deck instead of the LCS. That might be a better deal for them, actually.
Yeah. Legion says there's no shareholder-owned card companies anymore. They're all owned by private owners. Well, let me remind you, Legion, those private owners are shareholders. Every company is owned by shareholders, whether it's a public or a private company. So that's kind of what I was getting at. They're not always run by the shareholders, and they're not. Upper Deck isn't run by, I think he said, Vivian McWilliams. It's run by Jason Mashura. They're in business for the shareholders. Which
I think he's making the distinction between publicly traded and
he is. But I'm saying but he says there's no shareholder-owned card companies. Well, every company in the world is owned by shareholders.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Whether they're public or private is the other thing. But the management of the company, their goal, what they're tasked at earning profits for the shareholders and for themselves and bonuses and all that. It's all about making money for everybody that's involved. Ultimately, the shareholders. Chris says, as someone that doesn't touch high-end stuff, it's interesting, fun to watch what's going on with the hobby. It sure is, Chris. It sure is. Brett says, the conversation is happening, absolutely, but I think there are some who connect the hobby to the shops, remove that from the equation, and they might not want to adapt.
That's valid.
Completely valid. I mean, there's still people that don't have one of these, It happens, right? Yeah. Some people don't like change and some people embrace it. But
if what we're being told is true, Brett, there are so many new hobbyists coming in, so many that don't worry, they'll be replaced.
And they all have smartphones. Legion says those cards wouldn't have been found before the internet. We ain't got one of those, Mr. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Carvin says brick and mortar is needed, but they also have to adapt too. And you see, that's a great point because this is where group breaking comes in. Like you see Mo from West and you see Kenny Durr from Imperial and you see other guys. You see Ken Richardson from Pastime. These are guys that I'm familiar with that have Facebook groups that are out there breaking product every night of the week, pretty much. So they have really embraced this new digital world, the new video digital world, the ability to stream. Jason from Player's Choice in Kelowna, BC, he does card auctions a couple nights a week that get a good viewership, and he sells a ton of cards that way. So Carvin says it's needed, but they have to adapt. I mean, I think that they have to adapt in order to still be needed in some weird way, because again, I think the hobby survives without them. I'm not advocating for this. I'm just trying to think in what makes sense in my own head realistically.
Yeah.
Brett says, on the flip side, I think having more of the hobby online will draw in new collectors.
That's the prevailing theory. Quick point about what Carvin said.
Yeah,
I haven't workshopped this yet because usually I like to workshop my idea a little bit before it comes out. But something I said earlier in this conversation has triggered something in my head where I just thought of this. I already just said it kind of flippantly, but also at the same time, this might be a thing to the adaptation point. If Upper Deck or whoever gets tired of dealing with the distributors and wants to get more of the money for themselves, and they go to the direct-to-consumer model, brick and mortar can become a consumer too. So they just buy it directly from Upper Deck like anybody else, and then they go and do their own resale, but they use it as a way to get the people to come in. It might cost them more, but then they get rid of the wholesale piece from the manufacturer standpoint. They may not want to do it, but they could.
But now they're paying the same price that the consumer could pay right to them.
I agree, and then they would charge the consumer more. So but it depends on how much availability there is.
and how much the consumer values that in-store experience.
I'm not saying it's a good model. I'm just saying that's an option that may become available for the brick and mortar if they wish to continue in the wax.
Yeah, it's an option. I don't think it's a very good one. I think you're going to see.
I think they would hate it. Yeah,
you're just going to see these guys close the doors and pivot to something different altogether. Correct. At that point.
I agree.
Or he says distracted driving. Hopefully Justin not watching Jeremy. Hilarious. Yeah, no, mostly at red lights, Jay. But once in a while I'm on the move, I'll hit that bid button or confirm bid if I have to. Eric says that sounds like green eggs and ham. I buy them from a boat. I would buy them from a goat. Jeremy, I am. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Something we must have said earlier, but I like
that. That sounds like a Dr. Seuss rhyme. In fact, it sounds exactly like a Dr. Seuss passage.
Well, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Here, Carvin says LCS has infrastructure to create and cherish their communities.
It's a valid point, but Carvin, I think the bigger point, like he's totally right, but at the same time, like they have to be able to get the product. Yeah. So, like, depending on how they get the product is going to determine whether this becomes viable long term for them or not.
Yeah. Legion. This is what I was saying earlier. Legion makes the great point. LCS is a great support for supplies and on the spot purchases for sure. For some of the access to your PC, eBay, and the online world opened up a whole new world of possibilities when collecting my PC player. They sure did. And for collecting anything, whatever we PC, it's also out there. Oh my God, I've fallen asleep twice trying to stay up with you young folks. Keep it up. Mad fun. Thanks for joining. Wow, so confident in your style to lowball. LOL. So confident to lowball. I don't remember. I don't know what that's in reference to.
I assume he's referring to the seller on the 101, where I flat out told him that it's like, if you don't accept this, I'm going to decrease my offer.
Yeah, that's a good view. Yeah.
I'm actually going to drop this lower.
Yeah,
because it'd been sitting for a couple of weeks, and I was like, dude, you're delusional. By the way, I still feel I overpaid. Yeah, it was actually still too high in my opinion. But it's like, look, man.
And you know that happens, right? Where you make an offer, they say no. Then what typically happens is they have it to buy it now, $1,000. You offer $500. They say no. They list it for auction 2 weeks later. You win it for $250. Yeah, that happens too.
At the moment, right now, the man had a piece of cardboard and now he has cash. So now he can do something with the cash. He couldn't do anything with the cardboard.
Rod says companies control what the LCS can do. Example, not list new product on their own website unless approved by the company. Yeah. That's more.
Yeah, you're a UD authorized, or the company UD authorized online dealer, which is a newer thing, which means you can sell, but only in Canada. So, like, I've seen some dealers where they've got that kind of a deal. Yep.
Chris says the worst most sellers can do is say no if you lowball them, or in some cases accept it. That's true. He says if retail and bricks and mortar go away, how is the hobby going to grow to gain more collectors? Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Tim Hortons.
It also depends on their motivation, though. The reason why I made the quicksand comment is that I think a lot of these new collectors are here because of the dollars. They don't have the nostalgia necessarily. That's why I say, like, I'm on Bedrock because I've got a 30-year track record of nostalgia with it. I still enjoy it. It's still fun for me. That's why I'm up in the middle of the night in my time talking about this stuff. If I didn't enjoy it, I would not be doing this.
Yeah.
So I have no reason to be here. I could save money and spend it on other things.
Right. And same with me. That's why I'm up. That's why I'm doing. We're going on 4 hours here of live streaming tonight because I love this hobby. And there's 2 card shops in town that I frequent on a semi-regular basis now. The COVID's come up, and I don't bust a lot of product ever. I'm a singles guy. I'm a secondary market guy, so I don't open a ton of product anyway. When I go to trade nights at these shops, one being Maple Leaf Sports, one being Eastridge, I only play the Pack Wars games. I don't bust a box of this and a box of that. I'll maybe buy a card out of the showcase, do some trades with some guys, but I just bust I play the games that we play, and it's not necessary for me in the hobby and I don't want them to go away because I do go there and enjoy them. But if all the stores in my city disappeared, my hobby would change very little. The biggest thing that would change is that I wouldn't be able to get supplies as quickly as I do. That'd be the biggest thing. Not much more would change for me.
And right now we have a shortage of supplies too.
That's right.
So it's not like you can even get it.
Chris says grocery stores love their communities too, but they won't last if they can't stock the shelves. Yeah,
agreed. Totally agree.
Yeah. Legion says, but we need the kids. That's where the retail comes into play. Well,
I love this question. I love this comment. Please continue.
Okay, so all I'm going to say to that is I don't see how the card shops are the only lifeline to the new kids. Okay. I think there's many other ways that kids get involved these days. I'll leave it at that. Carlos, you're I can see you're ready to go. Let's hear it.
So I'll give you the shortest possible version of this. I understand where the sentiment comes from. I totally get it. What I challenge is the idea that this has been a kid's hobby in our lifetime. I actually don't think it is. And I actually don't think it's been a kid's hobby since, unless you're about 70. And I'll expand upon that in a video, I promise, in the future. But the short version is I genuinely don't believe it's been a kid's hobby for decades and decades and decades. So does it matter for the future? Yes, totally agree. 100% on board with that. I don't know if they need it because they understand the future needs it for sustaining. But I don't know if beyond the next couple of generations, it's going to matter what you do, retail or no retail. I'm a little more pessimistic on that than some people. We can debate it. I'm more than happy to, but I don't think it's been a kid's hobby for decades. It didn't cause a problem. I think this next generation, it will cause a problem, but I think that die has been cast, in my opinion. Man,
I'm not going to debate you on that because I completely agree. You know, people always say I believe we need kids in the hobby for the future.
Yes.
We do. We obviously need new people coming into the hobby. Otherwise our cards aren't worth anything. And so it's very self-serving for us to find ways to bring in kids. But these kids can be in their mid-20s. They don't have to be, 8 to 18 years old. They can just be younger people in their whatever, late teens, early 20s. To think that the only way they can get involved is through card shops. And Chris goes on to say that he says that only works if people are following the people posting the hobby stuff. Jeremy, my comment about Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I see zero card content on my main Twitter account that doesn't follow any card related people. Well, that's obvious, Chris. I mean, of course not. But a kid can, like, I hear stories all the time. You ask the young people in my who've come on the show here, Charles, for example, where he first got his first card ever came from. It wasn't going into a card shop. It was someone giving him cards. That's where it starts. What kid says, "Hey, mom, take me to the card shop"? Kids don't even know cards exist anymore. It comes from outside of themselves. It comes from it comes from a friend at school who has an older brother, or a friend who has a father who's in the hobby, or they saw something somewhere. They saw an ad in the newspaper for a card show. I've heard that one several times. I don't know that I've ever heard because I drove by a card shop and thought I wanted to go in there. Again,
I think it's a hard argument to make because my memories of the earliest part of my hobby where there were cards at the toy store and there were cards at the grocery store and the pharmacy, and where I got my first packs that my dad bought for me and let me have was at the pharmacy.
Yeah,
he bought me a couple of packs and let me have them, and I opened up on the way home. It was at the pharmacy. The pharmacist was very nice, but they weren't a card shop owner.
No, and that was my first was a drugstore as well, called Niagara Drugs in Winnipeg. But you know what? That's why maybe retail is so important, and the programs like Tim Hortons, because now you're getting impressions from people who don't even know that there's any card shops around. Let's keep rolling here, though.
Yeah.
Legion says they're not struggling to find Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon, but try to find some basketball or baseball. Frank says you're spot on, Carlos. Carvin says I agree. It's parents teaching kids.
That's fair.
Carvin says there are more 20-somethings buying and part of the business now. I agree. There's so many young people in the hobby right now.
It's a big demographic.
When I hear people say there's no kids in the hobby, you just don't know where to look. Many sneakerheads are buying cards. I mean, I don't know any personally that are, but I hear it, so I have to agree. The
only point I would make about the 20-somethings, and I agree totally with this assessment. The problem is they may not be tethered to the hobby as strongly. That's why I use that analogy between bedrock and quicksand. They would also be quick to jump ship if it wasn't profitable anymore.
It's because they don't have the gene like we do, right?
So that's where the retail argument has some validity. I agree, because if you don't get them at 8 years old, if you try to get them at 20 years old, they're there, but they're there because there's money to be made. And as soon as the money's no longer to be made, it's on to the next thing.
Different drivers, different things incentivizing them. Yeah.
Correct.
Here, Brett says, I've never thought about the hobby for me without shops in my city. I'm not sure I'd feel comfortable about it. I think I would explore the hobby more online than I currently do. Yeah, Instagram, Twitter, etc. Here's a comment. This is Rod's comment. Rod's a guy I really like. I know him personally. We've done business and become. I can't really call us hobby friends. We've never hung out outside of the summit in Edmonton, but we've certainly had some great conversations. Okay. I think you're going to like this comment, Carlos. He says, go ahead. It was a kid's hobby until LCSs appeared. When packs were bought at a corner store, it was a kid's hobby. So Is
I would
that
I would go further back.
even further back? Even further back.
The
I mean,
first,
but Carlos, there were LCSs in the 80s.
agreed. I'm with you.
So
Again, I don't want to give away my whole thesis, but let me give you guys the
okay.
shortest possible version.
Okay.
Because I want to save you guys some time, just to save.
And you'll do your own video on it too.
Yeah, but I'm also want to give you a quick thing. So for Rod's comment, Rod, your point's valid, and that's a good cutoff if you want to think about it that way. But the LCSs appeared because there was money to be made. The LCSs went back to the mid 70s. Kit Young was in the mid 70s, but I'll take you further. There were guys that were building the early price guides in the 1930s. What were price guides for? To evaluate value. Who was doing that? Adults. Not kids. It was adults.
Were they pricing them, or
Yes.
were they
came up with the
cataloging them?
earliest versions of price guides going back to the 30s. Their early cataloging had some very, very rudimentary pricing. They were thinking about prices. Who does that? Adults. The kids weren't thinking about prices. The kids were involved. The golden era of baseball cards in the 1950s, the kids back then may think they were avoiding it entirely. The adults were out there. They just didn't see them yet, but they were hanging out.
Yeah.
So the kids hobby, unless you're about 75 years old, you never had a kids hobby. Sorry.
Yeah. It's, again, I almost cringe when I hear people saying that, this is supposed to be a kid's hobby. No, it's not supposed to be.
Not in your lifetime, my friend. Not in your lifetime, my friend.
No. And why? Why is this supposed to be? Because they were issued with bubble gum at the beginning of time? Well, who could afford to go to hockey games in this, or baseball games or football or basketball games in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s?
They were issued with tobacco before that.
Right.
Yeah.
And
it wasn't the kids.
Right. I understand that. But what I'm saying is that these premiums were put in with tobacco, candy, and gum in order to sell more product, not to sell more cards, to sell more tobacco, candy, or gum. But who wanted those things at the time? It was the kids of the people buying the cigarettes, right?
That's
or
fair.
The kids
That's fair.
But those kids, they don't know who these players are. How do they know who these players are unless they're going to the games? Mm-hmm. And those games, you're only going to those games if someone is paying to take you there. Mm-hmm. So that was coming together in my head better than it came out of my mouth. So I'm going to kind of say maybe I wasn't going anywhere.
I generally follow you, but like I said, Rod, I think your comment is more than fair, and I don't have an issue with it. And I actually, like I said, if you want to use the LCS as a cutoff, you're not unfair. But if we do that, then we go back to the mid 70s. Well, guys, that's approaching 50 years ago. How old do you have to be then for it to be a kid's hobby in your lifetime?
Yeah, I mean,
like that's hard.
I think maybe the original intention might have been to get kids to get their parents to buy cigarettes, but
it was also a backer to keep the cigarettes upright and straight.
True.
It had a practical purpose as well.
It did have you're right. It did have the practical purpose, and it really came from. It started with. It wasn't even about sports figures at the beginning of time in the 1880s. It was about advertising. It was just advertising. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm getting tired here. Where are we? Hey, Jay Bricks, welcome to the show. Legion says, okay, so it does with us. That's extremely short-sighted. I'm not sure.
I assume he meant dies with us. And I say no, I think you've still got a generation or so. Because there's still residual, there's inertia. There's still some residual momentum. Go to the card show and do in your head a head count of the amount of kids out. I'm not saying there's zero, but I'm saying try to take the nostalgia glasses off. I'm not being mean about this. I'm just being honest with you. Take the nostalgia glasses off and understand that, yes, there are kids there and you will see them. I promise you'll see them. But then try, if you were around, try to think back to the 90s and you may realize there were more kids then.
Yeah.
The number was higher on a percentage basis.
There were more kids then, but there are still kids now and there's more kids coming in for whatever their incentives are.
I just don't know if it's going to be as sticky in the long run. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and it might not be. It might not be. Carvin says, for those of us that grew up with cards at 7 to 8, will recall this as a kid's hobby and not selling the cards. I mean, it was all about collecting the set. I didn't care what player it was. I'd trade you my Wayne Gretzky for my Ken Morrow if I needed to complete my set.
I agree.
Legion says we teach them. My daughter now knows Bobby Clark. I agree. I do believe for the longevity of our hobby, it's our responsibility as collectors to spread the good word, be positive about it, give cards out on Halloween to the kids in your neighborhood, do whatever you can to spread the word.
It will have to be very proactive, though. You guys are going to have to work real hard on that sales pitch because there's so many more options for their attention that you're going to have to work a lot harder.
Yeah, I hear you. And that's been the biggest argument against kids coming into the hobby for the last 15, 20 years, is that there's so many other options for them.
Mhm.
But in the young people that I talk to, you know, they still, you either collect or you don't, right?
Mhm.
If you you know, and you might be in between, but you're not going to stick around, become a lifer. You might come in for a short time, but
Mhm.
for real, for this hobby to be sustainable, you're either a collector or you're not. And I don't know that that's something that just goes away, because now you can, you know, play Pokemon Go or whatever kids are doing these days, play Fortnite. Like, there's still they still like sports. Every kid that, I won't say every kid, but most kids that play Fortnite, and I have a nephew who's a Fortnite, he's crazy about it,
Mhm.
or he was a couple of years ago anyway. He still likes cards. He still likes sports and liked cards. And now the kid's probably 15 years old. So a couple of years ago, he was 12, 13, and he loved cards and he loved Fortnite.
Yep. The good news is you'll get an answer in about 20 years.
Yeah.
We'll get the answer. If you stick around long enough, you'll find out.
Rod says, I am pre-mid 70s collector. I agree with you for baseball, but hockey never had the money following that way until the 1980s.
Very possible. Baseball is just an older market, so
Yeah.
it's possible it caught on later, and that's fine. That's a valid argument you can make.
Yeah.
I have no issue with that.
Brett says, it's a kid's hobby if you're trading your Gretzky rookie for that Borje Salming to finish your set.
But that is the era in which you could argue. Now, like I said, people might have still done that, but the fact is, the 1950s for baseball was the last era when you're like, oh, I'll trade you 5 commons for that Mickey Mantle, because you didn't have a sense of relative value. Once that started interjecting, the thing is, like I said, the adults were hanging around. They just weren't prevalent yet. That came later.
You know, I think the 80s was the prime time when it was a kid's hobby. You know, it was the 80s, and that was my era. I was opening up packs, building my sets, trading to complete it. I didn't care about who my doubles were. And really, for me, it turned into a monetized hobby when the first price guide came out. Those first Beckett's came out. That's when it changed for me, because all of a sudden I saw there was monetary value on these cards. And as a 13 or 14-year-old, or however old I was at the time, all of a sudden now I can go buy a TV for my bedroom, or I could go buy more cassette tapes and listen to music and that kind of thing. Save up for a car.
Yeah.
Chris says, I expected him to make a joke about when they made it so kids couldn't smoke anymore. No more free cards in their packs of smokes. Yeah. There's always been more options. That's a strange. Yeah, that's a good point. There's always been more options available, like going for bike rides with your friends, playing baseball. We don't need to get much more into that, but he makes a valid point. There's always been other options.
Yeah, yes, there's always been other options, but the other option is already in the kid's hands from basically birth. That electronic device is in there before the card is. The electronic device has precedence. It's already there. If we're talking about a younger generation.
It is, but it doesn't fill that same need or that same desire that some of us have.
Some of us, yes.
Some of us.
But some of us don't need the tangible thing. And if they don't need it, it doesn't hold.
Yeah.
The physical media may not hold.
Carvin says, good. Be careful about exposing hockey to the speculators, similar to basketball, MLB, and NFL. Imagine UD1 being sold. Yeah, we talked about that briefly earlier, Carvin, and yeah, he goes on to say it might happen soon. It might happen soon. Legion, thank you for joining throughout the evening. Always great to have you, man. Thank you so much. Have a good evening yourself. See you on Wednesday. Brett says, start of the 80s, kids, end of the 80s, everything changed. I mean, that's when Upper Deck came in with a hologram, and they really revolutionized the hobby. I mean, Donruss and Fleer came in the 80s with baseball, but they didn't change much about the cards themselves. It wasn't until Upper Deck came out and really changed the hobby. Mm-hmm. Legion says, remember when they UV coated Conseco rookies? Are you talking about like the Tiffany kind of? Is that Tiffany stuff? I'm not sure what that's in reference to.
There were those collector sets, if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah,
I'm familiar with it.
Special type sets. Joe says, I bought a 54 Aaron in the late 70s through the mail. Collectors have been able to connect with collectors for many years and will continue to do so. Yeah, but nowadays it's instant, right? Like you
probably got a good deal on that Aaron in the 1970s. Yeah, you probably got a good deal on it.
Yeah, because you're sitting pretty now on that one, Joe.
Yeah, if you still have it, you probably did all right.
Yeah, I bought my Hank Aaron rookie probably 6 or 7 years ago, and I mean, considering what they're worth now, I did well, but not as well as you did, Joe. Mm-hmm. All right, Carlos, man, we're way past my bedtime here, and it's even later where you are.
It's your show. You got the button. I don't. You look at me like I have a choice in the matter. You got a button. It's in the corner. Knock yourself out.
I'm just starting the goodbyes.
All right.
Carvin says UD attracted me to the business in 1989, and afterwards it was a dream to work for them creating card sets. Yeah, man, you had the best job going, Carvin. We all wanted your job for sure, and you did a great job at it too, my friend. Great job. I don't think the hobby would actually be the same if it wasn't for Carvin, to be honest. So thanks to him and I mean the good parts of it, I mean, which has led to where we're at now. So,
well, Carvin, I've decided to give you credit for all of it. I'm going to give you praise, but also all the bad parts are also all you. You get it all, Carvin. All of it. You can't take half. You got to take it all.
Legion, good night to you. Joe, yeah, this is probably the record. The most hours of Sports Cards Live in a single day. We're at the 4-hour mark, I believe.
We did it, you guys.
Frankie says, good show, guys. You think UD will ever do a Series 1 and 2 factory sets with all young guns?
That would be idea. I think that would be, I wouldn't be surprised, but it would be such a bad idea. The even though young guns are not scarce, they're scarcer. Putting it in a factory set.
Yeah, that's like that reminds me of the what are they called again? The vending cases of the 80s and late 80s.
What if you cheated and did a different version, a different picture for the card that was very clearly the factory one? Yeah, you could probably do that because the hobby one would have to be different. You couldn't keep it the same.
So first, Carvin says, "Thank you, Carlos. Yes, I will take it all." And
all yours, buddy.
And then he says, "No, Frank. They will not do them." Okay, that's nice to see. He goes on to say, "We talked about it all the time."
Yeah,
so
I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea.
Chris says he'll be back for the late show. Yeah. And there you go. Thanks, Carvin. Okay, guys, that's it for tonight. Carlos, thank you. Thank you for co-hosting with me tonight. Everybody watching, we had great viewership tonight for After Hours. Really good viewership for the earlier episode with Chris Carlin from Upper Deck. That was an awesome episode with him. All the great things that Upper Deck is doing. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Carvin says you'd have to make it $400 to $500 for the set for it to make any financial sense. Some of the best conversations going. Thank you so much. I wish I knew who you were. If you could post your name.
Quick thing I want to say just based on that as well. Guys, great comments. It led to some really good questions, some really good debate. That's Jeremy's After Hours show is going to be its own entity, but I love the possibility for a night like tonight when we had some really good folks that brought up some excellent points that led to some great conversation. I told him before we started, we don't need to, we'll take a couple of points, but then let's go where it goes. The comments brought it, guys. You guys brought it.
Yeah. And hey, man, that's the way my viewership has been from almost the beginning. Like I gotta say, like it's the viewers have helped the show evolve into what it's become, even with this After Hours spin.
There, guys. Praise for you. Praise for all of you out there typing. Great comments. There was some.
Thank you, everybody. Brett, thank you. Fun show. Yes, this was fun. Even though I feel like I'm losing my voice and I'm tired, it was an awesome conversation. Eric, thank you to you. Legion, thank you. Troy Medina, nice to know. Welcome and thank you so much for joining. Thought you might have hit it earlier. Something, it just depends on if you're on a different device. Carlos, make sure you give me a chance to have a rebuttal to your critique. There you go. Well,
there are 100 critiques. Could you be more specific? But yeah, definitely.
Well, Carvin, tune in. Carlos is going to have a meet on with him on his channel tomorrow night. I'll be watching. Feel free to comment on that.
You know what, Carvin? Maybe I haven't bought, like I said, I haven't scheduled anything out, but let's later on, let me reach out to you. Let's see, maybe I'll have you on. You can rebut directly.
There you go.
Maybe we'll do that.
Chris says, yes, shower us keyboard warriors with love. I love it, Chris.
It's all you, Chris. It's all you.
Guys, I'm hitting the end broadcast button. This has been a lot of fun, guys. I'm really enjoying the After Hours. So thank you all for joining. Everybody, I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for joining. It makes the evening so much more enjoyable. Carlos, thank you for joining me as co-host tonight. We'll have you back again within the next 2 or 3 weeks, I am sure.
Good. I have some fun.
What just rolled in? Carvin says, okay. Yeah. All right, guys.
I'll reach out, buddy. We'll do it.
Okay, sounds good. Carlos, wait there if you don't mind.